A long time ago in a town not too far from here, something strange happened. Someone had stolen the town's new statue of a famous local hero. The statue was made of bronze and was worth a lot of money. The police were called, but they couldn't find any clues. There were no fingerprints, and the only witness was a street sweeper who had seen two men carrying the statue away. But that was all the police had to go on. They searched everywhere for the statue, but it was nowhere to be found. The police were stumped. They had never seen anything like this happen before. And as the days turned into weeks with no sign of the statue, the case went cold. But the police didn't give up. They knew that someone in town had seen something. Someone had to have seen those two men carrying the statue. Surely there was someone who could help them. So the police started going door to door, talking to everyone in town. And finally, after weeks of searching, they found the statue. It was in a barn on the outskirts of town. The statue was covered in hay and the thieves had tried to make it look like an accident. But the police weren't fooled. They arrested the two men and brought them to justice. It turned out that the men had planned to steal the statue all along. They had watched the town prepare for the statue's unveiling and knew that it would be a valuable target. So while everyone was gathered around the pedestal, they snuck over, unbolted the statue and carried it away. They had planned to sell it to a private collector for a hefty sum of money. The police were relieved to have the statue back, and the town was grateful to the police for their hard work. The two men were charged with theft and sent to prison, and that is the story of how the brazen daylight theft of a town's new statue ended up being one of the weirdest cases the police had ever worked on. If you like strange history stories, stay tuned for more. Here's an interesting story from history. In 1969, something strange happened in the English town of Great Ayton. The local church, St. Gregory's, had been robbed. But the thing was, nobody had any idea how the thief or thieves had gotten in. The church was located at the top of a hill, and the only way to get there was by a long, winding path. And that path was lined with trees, so it was very dark. And on top of that, the church was surrounded by a high stone wall, the kind that would take a battering ram to break through. And finally, even if you did get past the wall, you'd have to cross a 30-foot wide moat. So how on earth had the thief or thieves gotten into the church? Well, when the police investigated, they found out that someone had stolen a large bell from the tower. That was odd, but they also found out that someone had stolen a set of church pews. That was even odder, but what was really odd was that someone had stolen the church's collection box. The police were completely baffled. They couldn't figure out how the thief or thieves had gotten into the church. But then a few weeks later, a man named Josephine Jagger came forward. She said that she and her husband had been driving home from a funeral when they saw two men unloading boxes from the back of a van. The men were taking the boxes to a house near the church. When Mrs. Jagger reported this, the police decided to dig up the backyard of that house. And lo and behold, they found the stolen goods, including the collection box. It turned out that the men had used a long hook to snag the collection box over the wall. But that wasn't all. After further investigation, it turned out that those two men were actually part of a gang of seven. 7 men who had come from Ireland to steal church property. But the question still remained, how did they get past the moat? Well, it turned out that one of the men had brought a ladder and propped it against the wall, allowing the others to climb over. The men were tried in court, but only 3 of them were found guilty. It turned out that the church insurance company paid for all the stolen goods, except for the bell, which the church was able to keep. And that bell still rings out over the town to this day. That's all for today. See you next time.